we spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of time, and I spent time with David Davis particularly, up front really evaluating and figuring out our brand essence. And there were times when, you know, they were just like looking at me like, yeah, this is, what are we going to do? We got to go. We've got, you know, things to do. But it was really important, I believed, and they came to believe as well, that brand essence, you know, is much more than just your logo or, you know, your colors or what it looks like. Brand essence is what you want to emote to people, what you want people to feel when they think about your brand. It includes core values. What do we stand for? You know, what are our integrity and all these other things. And so we put all that together at the beginning, and that all became a part of the brand. And anybody that we brought on, you know, that was part of the orientation. This is who we are. And we built everything from that. And of course, our customer focus was absolutely a key part of that essence. Value proposition, getting that right. You know, for us, we had to create a compelling value proposition for both marketing people or business people as well as IT. That's tough. Those are two very different audiences, and you may be faced with that as well, but it's important that you figure that out up front and you don't try to just get away with one message. Different industries, even though your value proposition may be the same, the benefits may be the same, the language is very different when you're talking to banks than, you know, when you're talking to the insurance companies or even more the government agencies, as an example. So clearly have to do that. That was probably my and our biggest challenge in marketing, as Kim can attest to as well, were the permutations of all of those messages for different audiences along with the different industries, and create everything we did. We created something to look like we were in front of a healthcare company, that's what all we knew and did was healthcare. We knew how to help people. You have to know also beyond just marketing or IT, who are the actual decision makers? Who actually has the budget? And be very directed at those folks in your messages. Competitors, I think it's important. You clearly have to understand who your competitors are. You have to know everything you can about them, but at least in this case at Extreme, we knew that we had technology that was leaps and bounds above what they did. So my perspective was just to focus on us and our strengths. Be aware of what they're doing, but really stay focused on them. And funny enough, as in a couple of years, they started copying everything we do. We'd come out with Williams McBride, a new ad campaign, and lo and behold, a month later, we'd see similar graphics and messages from some of our competitors. Strategy from the beginning, some of the key elements here. Image, I hired Williams McBride. Kim came in. She was the first hire, period, that I did. But I knew right away that if we were going to become aware, we needed to create an image of a billion-dollar company. We couldn't look like we were this little startup because some of the people we were competing against were big public companies. So the money I did have, I spent a lot of it with Williams McBride in that first year, helping me to create that brand and the graphics and the design and the website. We created they designed a trade show booth that we took out. In those first couple of years, we went out and bought the biggest space that my budget would allow me to afford, so that on those floors, so that if somebody walked in, they had no choice but to say, where the heck did these guys come from? Who are they? So if you don't have much money, obviously prioritization is the most important thing. You've got to pick and choose, and that's key. But I think that paid off for us. And I picked the best that there was in the graphics design, and Kim and her group became just an extended part of the team and worked with us all the way through the whole thing. Planning, what I'll say about that, I mentioned before that it was part of our culture at Extreme to plan, and we went through rigorous exercises on goal setting and measurements and performance reviews. My basic feeling, if you do all your work up front and really get your plans, and what we did in marketing was 6 months at a time. So we built, starting in January, we knew exactly for the next 6 months to the half of the year, or halfway through the year, what we were going to do. We had it, it was all laid out on big spreadsheets, and that way we were focused on these different industries, and we could ensure that we were hitting our targets on a consistent and persistent basis. But once you do that, if you do that, then execution is just a matter of, you got to hire the right people, obviously, but just go do it. And so that's the process we used. Spent a lot of time up front making sure that we had that plan right, and then we executed, and at the halfway point, we reviewed it, we adjusted, we created the next 6 months and did it again. On the execution side, one of the key things here, relationships, I think is so critical, and it's always been around that marketing and sales don't get along with each other as a general rule. Well, that was not the case ever for us at Extreme. I mean, as the years went on, and we had lots more people who were coming on, of course you're going to have personality conflicts every now and then, but basically there was a great deal of respect between the marketing and sales teams, and I think that was critical that we worked together in that way. And then the other one was customers. Customer relationship management was another one of the very first programs that I put together and we focused on, and created a user group and advisory council with our key customers. We had an annual user conference that became something that was just a lot of fun, but a huge opportunity once a year for our customers to come in and meet Chris and his team and everybody else. And we did a lot of those types of things to develop relationships, and marketing ran that. And then finally here on output, again, at the end when you're measuring your success, these are some of the things that we measured and looked at. How are we doing against the competition? Obviously, that was a revenue-based goal. Awareness, I mentioned before about measuring. I had a point system in place that, for example, with my PR firms, they would get so many points for every press release that was printed or was on the web somewhere. They would get more points if they got a feature article out there and so forth. And there was a weighting and measuring program. But there are ways to measure everything. And also did that with everyone on the team, on my team. And when you do that, they know exactly ahead of time what the goal is, what they're being measured on, how they're going to get the carrot, if you will. And then you could just, just kind of oversee. And I always, before anything went out the door, was the kind of the final quality engineer, if you will. But I think that's clearly important. Same thing on demand generation, lead generation. We had a lot of measurements and goals around that, as well as sales tools, which most of that input came from the sales team. At the end of the story, then we had, I say the end of the story, there's still Extreme exists today, actually out in Coldstream Park. The teams have been kind of dispersed, but it's still there, owned by Hewlett-Packard. But we have 314 employees worldwide, 8 offices, including the office in Lexington, which was headquarters. The Atlanta office was a sales office for North America sales. And those offices, actually in Europe, weren't created until about 2003. We worked with partners over there, and some of those partners became employees and opened up offices. And same thing in Sydney, Australia. We didn't really, at kind of the latter part of the whole thing, we had a couple of people that were going over to Asia, specifically Japan and China to some degree, and trying to get things going on kind of but I never had marketing dollars to focus on that. And it wasn't until HP that Extreme really focused there. So we pretty much stayed primarily in North America and Europe. We had, by the end of '07, almost $100 million in annual revenue coming in. We had over 500 enterprise customers, which those are named customers, the Bank of America, Aflac, Fidelity. The largest in the insurance industry, the banking industry, financial services, telco, all the big telco providers, from AT&T, Sprint, all those guys use our software. Probably, somebody told me a statistic, we don't have actual numbers on this, but about 70 to 80, it's guesstimated that about 70 to 80% of all of the mission critical documents, and so that's the invoices and statements, not the junk mail stuff, that you get from your providers, people you do business with, are created from Extreme software. It was really just an incredible story. We ended up being kicked out that Group 1 company in about year 3 or 4. We had another competitor at a trade show steal our lead reader, you know, the scanner to scan people's cards. We're packing up, and one of the sales guys caught him, and he came by just kind of nonchalantly and picked it up and just took off with it. So we had those situations. We had lots of, you know, the competitors trying to copy our marketing, advertisements, and campaigns, and it was a great experience for, I don't think you'll ever talk to anybody who was there or still there, although it's a little different at HP now, but they didn't learn so much. And we became one of the top 50 fastest growing software companies in the world within about 6 or 7 years. So that's really the story. I was just going to, this is kind of just a quick wrap up, some key points of basic tenets of your business that I think are a lot of the things I was talking about, but you know, identify your primary customer and really focus. We stayed focused on 3 industries for the first 2 years, and we didn't waver from that. We wanted to become successful there, and you can, you know, get too broad, and then it gets crazy. So that was important for us. Make customer experience a cultural foundation inside your company, and then create evangelists from your customers, and leverage those successes. The early part of the marketing too was just getting press releases out on all those customer wins and successes we had. I talk a lot about goal setting, was very important, planning, measuring, value proposition, and getting that elevator speech down is just critical, and it has to be compelling. I mean, your elevator speech isn't describing what your product or service is. It's immediately, you've got about 15 seconds to tell somebody what it can do for them. And you've got to realize that it's going to be different depending on who you're talking to. You need to really have that nailed. Be aware of your competitors, but stay focused on your own strengths. On the product development and support side, you know, Chris can tell you about this someday, but this was a huge thing that you have to plan for. How are you going to prioritize enhancement requests? You're going to get tons from customers, and how do you do that, and evaluate those versus your own vision for the product or service. Involve your customers in the process. We did that through the user conferences I mentioned, advisory, and customer service. I think that goes without saying.